Thank you so much for being here with us this evening for the District 2 School Board Candidate Forum. My name is Renata Soto, and I'm the Executive Director of Conexión Americas, a local nonprofit here in Nashville. Tonight's forum is jointly presented by the Urban League of Middle Tennessee, Metropolitan Nashville Education Association, and the Nashville Area Chamber of Commerce. We also want to express our gratitude to the McMurray Middle School staff for opening the school for us this evening. Before we begin, I want to tell you about the format, both for our guests and our panelists. We have questions that we will ask every candidate that has been the same questions that we have asked in previous forums. Each candidate will have 60 seconds to answer each question, and our timekeeper, Whitney, will let us know when each candidate meets their time limit. So we will be watching her. Following this segment, questions will be open to the audience, and we ask that you please write your questions on cards provided by staff who will be circulating. And if you have questions that we don't have time to address by the end of this forum, we encourage you to stay around. The candidates will be sticking around, and you can have a direct conversation with them. Lastly, we want to everyone to follow with tonight's discussion and share things that you find interesting. So we ask that you please use the hashtag SchoolBD2. So since we don't have much time, we're gonna get started. And again, each panelist, each candidate will be answering each question. Question number 1, and we will start with Mr. Arnold, then Ms. Brannon, and then Mr. Driscoll. Why are you running for school board, Mr. Arnold?
There's many reasons. I made the decision to run for this position on 9/11/2012. My wife and I appeared before the board with an issue related to pre-K and our infant son. That issue was basically ignored. We appeared before the board because it was a last resort to try to solve an issue. As I sat in that room, I saw many parents address the board with issues that were similar to mine. They were on zoning, they were on charter schools, and I realized that their issues were my issues. More important than the people present were the people who weren't present. I felt there were a lot of people out there that had similar questions, but they weren't asking them. I have 3 children in public school, and many issues are going to come through in the next 4 years that will affect my children, both in zoning, a new possible school being built, issues of how grading is accomplished through Common Core.
Okay.
I would like to continue my service on the school board as we try to reach our goal of becoming the highest ranked school system in the nation by 2018. It's outlined in our strategic plan, Education 2018, Excellence for Every Student. There will be more opportunities for student achievement in the coming years. We're excited about new programs that are coming on board, Cambridge, more IB, and I would like to say that my work has taken me in every quadrant of the city. And one common thread runs among all parents. Every parent wants a quality education for their children.
Sure, I'm Bernie Driscoll. I'm running for school board. Our family is 100% MNPS. Both my daughters have gone through the system. Our oldest daughter, who's out there tonight, she's a junior out in California at Claremont McKenna, and our youngest daughter will graduate this spring at UMFOG. We've been advocates for our kids since day one, since kindergarten and the pre-K programs. And we've always had a fight for a quality education. And I can see why parents who kind of come in and believe they can change, we can make it better, often leave by the time they get into middle school, into high school. So we really care as a family about Metro schools. And I thought this was a good time to really kind of step up and really kind of change a lot of the cyclical problems that have kind of occurred in this district year in, year out. All the problems when I knock on doors, people are telling me the same thing. They're just not happy with the academic achievement or the pace. And this is our time now to choose a new director of schools and to start a new future for Metro schools.
We move to question number 2. What do you perceive to be the greatest challenge facing public education in Nashville? And we start with Ms. Brannon.
I see the greatest challenge being increasing achievement for all students, especially in literacy. We need to enhance our programs for English learners, for gifted and talented students, for students with special needs, and disadvantaged students. Some examples of programs that we need to continue to enhance would be the Cambridge program, IB programs, dual enrollment, advanced placement, our reading interventions like the reading clinics, training for teachers and paraprofessionals to support all inclusion models.
Sure. I think that the biggest problem that's kind of facing us here in the school system is the status quo. I mean, if you're happy with a 76% graduation rate at Overton High School, you know, I'm probably not your candidate. If you're happy with only 14% or less kids who are ready for college, you know, I'm not your candidate. I get upset when I don't see kids reaching their own potential, and I think we see that every day in our schools. We're not doing enough for our kids at the elementary school or certainly at the middle school level to see academic achievement. The Cambridge program you probably just heard mentioned, I don't know much about it, and most of you don't know much about it. It was really never discussed much from the board, but we've approved it, and now we're adopting it wholeheartedly into the district. So I'd like to see change come into the district, but I want to take a pragmatic approach. I want to use data and analytics to make strong, smart decisions for this district.
The biggest challenge I see facing education is the same challenge we had 8 years ago, we had 12 years ago, we'll probably have it 8 years from now. And that is that we just cannot get these parents involved in their children's education. When I go to my kids' different things they have at school for reading and math night, I see the same people. They bring all this food in, but a lot of people just don't show. Teachers tell me about they have parent-teacher conferences that parents don't come. Until we can get the parents involved in their children's education, we're going to continue to have problems. And the biggest the threat that I see is trying to do everything we can to get these parents involved. It's these kids whose parents are not involved are the ones that are not getting through the system. These are the ones we have to concentrate on. My campaign has a goal, not a slogan: working together for effective schools.
If you had to pick one indicator of student achievement that was the most important to focus on, what would that be?
It would probably be the number of national merit semifinalists that each high school kind of produces on a yearly basis. What that does for us, it kind of tells us that we're doing everything right from kindergarten through high school. We're making sure that children are learning at their own pace through elementary school, through middle school, into high school. Just to give you some statistics on that, last year we had one at Overton High School. We had one at McGavick. And the shining star of our district, Hillsborough, produced 0 national merit semifinalists, with all the schools around them producing, 10 or more. So that's probably the biggest metric that I want to pay attention to, because if we pay attention to that, that means everything else is moving, and it's holding everybody accountable all the way through a child's education.
The biggest indicator of student achievement is the ability to read. My daughter was in the 3rd grade and had the highest reading score Metro could give her. My son's in the 4th grade. He just finished reading since January Treasure Island. And my youngest son's having problems. At their school, they have some reading specialists that are working with the kids. My son had some problems. They had specialists there. They've got a lot of kids who don't read. They've got a lot of kids who don't speak English. You can't do a math problem if you can't read it. So the biggest indicator is how well they can read. Thank you.
I think literacy proficiency is the best indicator for student achievement. Mastery in reading skills are directly linked to all other content areas. While many are great readers, it enhances their ability to achieve higher in other content areas, but it does not always assure it. In looking at assessments, I think that the formative assessments that are used by teachers, the summative assessments, but also portfolios, project-based learning projects can also be used to assess literacy.
The current director of schools contract is scheduled to expire next year. As a member of the school board, what will you look for in the next director of schools?
First of all, the requirements used to select the current director are not the same as the requirements that will be used to select the next one. Metro has moved in different directions. We really won't be able to see some good requirements till we see how the TCAP comes out and how they do assessments on the schools to see if there's been any improvement or anything's gone down. For example, John Overton, their schedules goes back to 2012. They've not even been updated on how they are looking on their reading or different skills. But the board as a whole will determine those requirements. And of course, education and experience are obvious. But what I would like to see in the next director is something kind of different. It's just simply called an openness. I found the director, in my personal experience, was not open at all to me or anyone else. I'd like to see a director that would come out to these schools in District 2 and just sometimes visit. I think by a director doing that.
In looking for a candidate for our new director, I think it should be someone who shares our mission and vision, and that should be to increase the achievement level of all students, our English learners, our special needs students, our gifted and talented and disadvantaged students. I'd like to see a person who is leadership savvy in educational practices, in curriculum and instruction, who is business savvy, and who understands the importance of building community, and who works well with elected officials.
Sure. I think the next director of schools that I'm looking for, the candidate must be open, trustworthy, kind of honest. And I really want to make sure that he aligns with our goals and objectives in our mission statement. And I really want a director who's basically not going to accept, lack of achievement, where poverty or situation kind of comes into play. All kids can do a great job, and I want someone to be that cheerleader for this community. And someone who really will take the blame and there will be no excuses. I want a director who will really kind of make this district a large urban district that it should be. And I think we have a great chance to find an excellent candidate because it's one of the best cities to live in the U.S.
What are your thoughts about the Academies of Nashville model in Metro's 12-zone high schools?
My thoughts are what's not working in the academies. The students are more engaged, the attendance is better, discipline problems have decreased, students have opportunities to acquire certifications that other students in other districts cannot achieve until they get to college. The academies are rigorous, and students can benefit from the academies while also taking advantage of advanced placement courses, IB courses, the Cambridge, which is advanced learning, dual enrollment, and advanced placement. Again, they have a path for career or college. At Overton, the IT program just qualified 9 students for Java, A+, and Adobe.
So I think the academies is a great concept. I mean, really think about it. Instantly, it had buy-in from parents. They can see, oh, my child can go there. Business community was like, wow, we can participate. And so I think that the chamber and I think parents and I think students have really kind of bought into the program. However, the rigor still is not there. The graduation rate at most of our high schools is, it's like 76%. Very few of our kids are proficient for college. So I think we need to really kind of look at the rigor and put that into the academy program. Otherwise, I think we're going to put the business community and the chamber at risk because we're just not delivering the product I think that we all anticipated it would be.
In high school, I was in the DECA program called the Stream of Education Clubs of America. It's kind of an early type of academy to prepare students for careers in retail. Students worked one half the school day and they attended classes the other half. School credit was given for working, and several local companies were involved. Kane Sloan was one, Harvey's, Kroger, Castronauts, in addition to small businesses. I was placed at Kane Sloan where I started as a stock boy and worked up to a salesman. It was a really good concept back then. It gave students an opportunity to learn a type of skill. And it worked when I went to school. And I think it's really great, and I'm really pleased with the broad career groupings that they have. I think it's a good program.
As a board member who will help determine how the district allocates its operating budget, what budget areas would you want to see prioritized?
First of all, I would kind of take inventory. I want to see, what budget expenditures align with our priorities and our goals. And I want them to align with our mission statement and those objectives. And I want to thoroughly evaluate which areas within the district that dollars do not reach the classroom. And I want to say that there's really no sacred cows. I mean, we really need to deliver to our students. So I really want to hold central office very much accountable to their expense and to the high expectations that they give to the media and they give to the community.
The board reviews the recommendations of MNPS, and a lot of people really get involved from the different schools and so forth, all down to some of the council people. As a former computer instructor and a salesperson of computer accounting, I've got a wide range of skills in databases and spreadsheets, word processing, and PowerPoint. And I have experience in working with large contracts and also allocating resources. If I'm elected to the board, I'll volunteer to work with Mr. Will Pinkston to analyze and prepare the annual operating budgets. As far as School Board District 2, one issue I'll be looking at is we have many students do not speak English. We have an immediate need to increase the number of bilingual teachers and aides. That'll be something I would push for.
The board as a whole makes up the Budget and Finance Committee, along with the Director of Schools, the Chief Finance Officer. Also, we utilize the needs assessment that has been presented to us by all departments. Our priorities this year have been pre-K, literacy programs, the 2% raise for all employees, and the All-Star training. But since our district is so diverse, we need more instruction for our students. We have the sheltered instruction observation model, and that is being used by all teachers in this district. But we need to expand that. Overton has the largest diverse student population with
Thank you.
63 countries and 50 languages.
Metro Schools has a new Academy Performance Framework, APF, which ranks schools into excelling, achieving, satisfactory, and the lowest level target. What should the district do about schools that consistently underperform at the target level?
First of all, it depends on why they're underperforming. I think the prudent approach is to identify the best of our ability why they're underperforming. It's only then can we determine any type of approach. Some people have the approach, if they're underperforming, you get rid of the teachers. That may not be the best solution. Some people have the attitude, if they're underperforming, you get rid of the principals. That may not be the best solution. But a lot of schools have a higher percentage of students in low-income families, and these socioeconomic factors affect the student performance. So I think you have to look long and hard as why they are underperforming, and only then can you make some good resolutions as to how to correct it.
Yes, although we understand that there are some environmental factors that impact learning, we still try to move our students to a higher level of achievement. And so in doing so, what we need to do is to look at some demographics of excelling schools and then compare those with the target schools to see what is working well and to utilize those best practices. We have lots of diversity within our district, and our schools are in need of more instruction, improved instruction. 2 years ago, Overton was on the targeted list, but they have now moved to the review list.
Sure. So basically, first off, we have to understand the new framework. Achieving schools still produce low outcomes. So I think we need to kind of keep refining the process, and also to remind, like, target schools just don't show up on the target list. They take a while to get there. So we need to be looking at all levels all the time to really keep an eye on where our schools are going. So what needs to be done if a school is at the target level? We need to put together a plan. We possibly a takeover conversion could be on the table, and also too the thing that kind of I'm confused with the framework is a school really can be at target for 3 years, and 3 years is 25% of a child's learning time within metro schools. So we need to do something about that. I mean, if you dropped off your car and if I was a mechanic and I told you I'd give your car back in 3 years, that's not acceptable, and certainly 3 years isn't acceptable for the kids in those schools.
Do you support the implementation and measurement of Common Core state standards in metro schools?
Yes, the Common Core state standards was adopted at the state level, and MNPS has been utilizing the Common Core standards for approximately 3 years. It does promote a deeper understanding of the core concepts, and it allows students to apply all of their knowledge to real-world situations. It focuses on readiness also for college and career. Although the TCAP is not aligned with Common Core, it makes it difficult for us to really measure the impact of Common Core standards on student achievement and also on teacher accountability.
I'm in favor of it, but it certainly is a hot potato item when you're knocking on doors at times. And it was kind of mandated down to us from the state. I think the implementation from the state and their alignment with tests just hasn't been spot on, and that needs to change quickly, and I think they're moving that way. What I can say, though, is what Common Core does do, politics and everything aside, it assures that even the lowest performing school, we're holding those kids and make sure that they're learning to those standards and at a national level. And when we moved here 20 years ago, I asked a couple walking in our neighborhood, how are the schools here? And they said, well, they're good for around here. And that wasn't a good answer 20 years ago, and it's not today. So I'm happy we have something. It might not be perfect. We might have something better in a few years, but for now, Common Core works.
Very few people have ever read the practice test questions for the TCAP or read any of the Common Core literature books. At the present time, Common Core is pretty much in the hands of the legislature. There was some heavy voting this last time, but the Common Core testing component has been delayed for 1 year. I've read 3/4 of my daughter's Common Core textbook, read all the questions, found them to be hard, some to be hard, some to be easy. She was one of the schools that was selected to take the sample part test. So if I get an opportunity to actually see the test results, I think I can give a better understanding of what Common Core does. But I found all the selections to be very varied. They went from Robert Frost to Ricky Tikki Tavi, and also to Alfred Noyes and Current Things. So I'm still looking at what's there. A lot of people have been giving me comments, but they never actually read it, and they're just hearing from other people.
The school board operates under a system called policy governance, which defines the roles and responsibilities of the board and how they carry out decisions. There has been recent talk of the board changing policy governance. What is your position on this issue?
So I believe in policy governance. It's a great way for a very diverse board like we are in Davidson County to really come together to agreement and tell the director one thing. and let that director kind of take the leadership from there. I believe the board probably is not trained, has not been trained in policy governance, so that's a concern to me, and I think that's something, if I get on the board, that's something I'd like to see happen immediately. And I'd like to see probably with policy governance, one of the first things we do is sit down under that framework and create a new mission statement, and at the same time start going back through what do we want in our next director, what do we need to do. And I'd like to see policy governance to also unify the board. It's going to be really hard for us to find the best candidate if board members are sparring with each other through Twitter and online media. So I think policy governance is a good thing for us, and I think it's what the city needs so that we can get a next director of schools.
The governance is a set of rules which defines how decisions are made, and they're binding to the board as a whole. The rules set guidelines and give a uniformity of decisions, so there's no way you can simply throw them out. You can alter them or you may replace them. But the board has the authority to modify, delete, or add rules at any time. Any member can propose a change, and I believe that member should be given the opportunity to explain that change. At this point, the members will give their input and then vote. So I believe that you can add them and modify them.
For the past several years, the state legislature has proposed a school voucher program that would allow students to attend private schools using public funding. Do you favor a school voucher program for Nashville?
First of all, I'm open to the use of vouchers as an alternative to either public schools and charter schools. However, there are many issues. I don't know if we can get around these issues. One issue is that the private schools charge more than what has been proposed for the public funding, and that leaves either the school or the parent to make up that difference. In School Board District 2, I don't think we have many parents have the ability to make that difference. That may be worked out at one point. The other issue is that many people object to using public money in a private school that may have a religious type orientation. I don't think we can get around that one. But I am open to vouchers. I think it's a good opportunity in the future. I don't see it coming in the next 4 years, though.
I will simply say that, no, I do not approve of public funding being used for private schools.
Basically against vouchers, but I just want to kind of remind the board, it's really up to us to provide children in this district with an outstanding education, a quality education. We have charters in this district that come in and might be the solution at that point, but it's really up to us when we see schools that are not performing to be innovative and create the programs that will replace the existing school in that area. So that's it.
As a school board member, you will have the opportunity to review many applications to open new charter schools in our city. Do you believe we should have more charter schools?
In 2008, I voted with the board to approve a maximum of 20 new charter schools. But the state lifted that cap in 2011, and then we discovered that there were going to be some budgetary concerns that we have. I know that we offer and should offer more choice, but we have the career academies, we have thematic schools, magnet schools, our non-traditional schools, and transitional schools. There is a place for charters, but I also feel that we should develop a plan that enables us to support the charters without hurting our ability to fully support our neighborhood schools.
So, my campaign motto is our children, our schools, our future. I'm open for just good schools without whatever the label is. It doesn't bother me. We do offer choice here in this district, but to be honest with you, it's thematic choice, right? So it's the same curriculum. We do the same thing, except we put the chair over here and the desk over here. There's not a lot of difference between the schools. It looks like it in scope, but it's really not. They still produce a lot of the same kind of so-so results. So I really expect our district to be innovative, to come up with new concepts far beyond just thematic choice. And if there's good charter operators coming out here, let them come out here and let them show us that they can maybe do better than us, and let's, as a board, with our community schools or neighborhood schools, do better than them. This should be a competition for success, not a place where we draw a line in the sand.
Last night I did a little bit of research on charter schools, and I tried to find out how many we have. I had a hard time finding that number, and I finally found a little website that appears we've got 12. And according to that, we have a total of 2,395 children. I think that's 12, and according to this website, which I don't think is correct. But a total of 20 as a possibility at the very beginning sounds pretty reasonable to me. If we've got 12 running now, I think we had 2 that dropped out. It gives us basically 8. I'm open to charter schools as an alternative to parents, but there are certain guidelines they have to go by. In District 2, I'm not sure if there's been any applications for charter schools or something that's coming down the pipe. But I would be open to additional charter schools if it's required, if there looks to be a need. Thank you.
Thank you. We now move to the audience questions. The first one, do you believe that districts should have a memorandum of understanding with labor organizations such as SEIU? Please explain. Ms. Brandon, you want to start?
When MEA lost their opportunity to actually negotiate with the board, there became a place for them at the table, and I think that there is a place for all other units for employees at the table to collaboratively work to improve our system and to help the employees.
In general, I'm not against any kind of, a reasonable agreement. I haven't read it. I know that the director's been kind of sitting on it, I think. I haven't had a chance to ask him why. But I wouldn't be against it as long as it's, mutually beneficial to our kids.
In Metro Nashville Public Schools, you have at least one, maybe 2 unions, and the statement of understanding is always just a part of that. It may not be what people want to understand, but it's basically a part of that. So I would say yes. I would think there should be a statement of understanding between the unions and MNPA.
What urban district in America is beating us such that you feel we should emulate them, and why?
Well, I think I'd rather for us to tell our own story. When we look at like Denver, Denver's kind of coming out of this. Do they have too many charters? Do they have not enough? And I think a lot of times we find ourselves kind of chasing the end of a cycle on any newest fad. We have Cambridge coming in, but we haven't heard much about it. We brought other kind of things in. We've gone to year-round schools that really, I don't know really if they've been effective or not. So I really think it's up to Nashville to chart their own success and set our own KPIs and our own criteria of success, and not really follow one single mold of another district around the country.
I think we should look for best practices that are utilized all over the country. No one recipe will fit the needs of all of our students.
To be honest, I'm not that familiar with some of the other, I guess I would call them experimental things, how things are being done. So I really can't answer that question. I'm not familiar with them.
Okay. What are your thoughts regarding the school board saying they have 1 employee, the director of schools?
Theoretically, that's correct. You have the director, and the way they've got the personnel aligned, everyone flows under him. And the director is responsible for what goes below, the way it's set up now.
Ms. Brannon?
I would say that is correct. That's the way we operate as a board.
Yes, we should operate as a board with one voice to the director of schools. I don't know if we're doing that completely in our district. What happens a lot of times is when you don't have a unified board with one set of directions, you start having a lot of board members dealing with the director, because the director really doesn't know where he stands. He's just trying to win the favor of individual board members or groups of board members. So if I'm a board member and we follow policy governance, we'll be a board unified as one, with one single voice to the director, and that is the person that we will work with.
Do you support hiring Teach for America and/or Nashville Teaching Fellows teachers? Do you think MNPS should have contracts with these organizations in the future?
I was on the board when Teach for America and the New Teacher Project evolved with Metro Nashville Public Schools. I think that it has great merit. I think we should probably be very cautious of employing too many of those teachers within one school. There should be a perfect balance of those teachers who are considered seasoned and can mentor the new teachers that come on board.
Sure, I'm not opposed to that at all, but the question I ask is, when we do engage into these contracts up ahead of time, we should say, how are we going to measure success here? We're spending a lot of money here. How will we measure success? And I don't think the board's done it or the district's done it. So if we take that approach in the future and have the KPIs up front, then we'll be able to answer that question with much more clarity to the taxpayers of the city.
I would say that these groups should be considered as any other type of group, and they're evaluated the same. They're not giving any preferential treatment. They're not treated not unpreferential treatment. As far as a contract, I would look long and hard at that contract and what it would say, and I would be very careful on getting any type of long-term contract with any particular group.
Do you support due process, tenure for MMPS teachers?
I'd have to think about that. I think I'd say probably so, but I'd really have to kind of think about that long and hard and to see how successful has the district been awarding tenure and how unsuccessful have they been. And once I've done that, I would definitely be able to give you a clear answer.
Due process, every person should have that. Tenure was pretty much a college type thing, and I really don't see it in place in a school like we have. Tenure is for a type of academic type freedom in a college, and I really don't see tenure in metro schools.
As a teacher, I very much appreciated being able to receive tenure. As a principal, I worked with teachers who were tenured teachers, and I do think that due process will service the teachers and all certificated personnel well. As a principal, I have worked with many, many teachers who have been represented by the possibility of being able to file a grievance. And so it is a worthy process.
What about your character and leadership style prepares you to be the best school board member for District 2? Tell us what distinguishes you from your opponents.
I've been called a bulldog, and bulldog meaning that when I get into a problem, I bite into it and I don't leave till the problem's done. When I was in sales, we had a computer problem. When I show up, they go, "Oh my God, it must be really bad because he's here." I have a lot of patience, and I've been involved in, thousands of different things. Been involved in court cases at juvenile court, and there are times you just have to back off. And I have that feeling, to get people to back off and kind of take a breather and then kind of come back. So I have that type of thing, which I think is going to be very beneficial when we go through these negotiations.
I think that I am patient, I am a good listener, and I try to process and solve problems in a logical manner. That has been working for me for many years, and I think that's one of my greatest attributes.
I'm a problem solver. I'm not afraid to kind of get into a conversation to keep us in line and focus on our goals. And I want to win. I want our district to win. I want all the kids to win. It's not so much I want to win. I want to see our kids win. So I think on the board, I'd bring a sense of leadership and a person who's really going to look analytically at almost all decisions that we make.
If you could improve one thing about Metro schools immediately, what would that be? Be specific, please.
Well, because our district is very diverse, I would enhance the instruction for our students in our classrooms, through community assistance as well as academic assistance.
Oh, I just make sure that every teacher had like school supplies on the first day of school and not have to take $500 out of their pocket to pay for things that should already be there, or we should have accessible readily by hand. That's the easiest thing you can do. It's probably the lowest piece of hanging fruit out there.
I would like every parent or caregiver to become involved in their children's education. I think that would make a big difference.
Our district has many English language learners, and it's a growing population. How would you advocate for them?
I'd really like to get very much into a lot of the English language learner community. I want them to know and to have trust in us, and to know that, sus niños are our children. So we need to kind of build trust with the community. We need to know, we need to make them better consumers of education too, and not be afraid to speak up. When they're in the wrong math class and their child can do better, they need to have the confidence to know that they can speak up and they can get the needs of their children met in the classroom.
As a principal, I had 2 English learner centers in my schools, and I know that the parents are eager to help their children. They are eager for their children to succeed. And so I would do all that I could to make sure that they feel welcomed within the school. We are the community of diversity in District 2. Our schools at Haywood, Cole, Tusculum, McMurray, Creve Hall have lots of English learners. And so this is our community, and we need to service our students better.
As a member of the school board, I would push very hard to increase the number of bilingual teachers and also aides. In my children's elementary school, they had some students that they didn't have anyone that could speak the language. I think there's resources out there that we can pull in, and I would try to go as far as we could to get those resources to advocate for them.
What is your opinion of the annual teacher evaluation process that includes student achievement results as part of that measure?
As instructor for 14 years, you have to have a part of the evaluation, your results of how the students do. You cannot pull it out. I think you have to be very reasonable in how you approach that. In my situation, I taught in college, in National State Tech. Everybody wanted to be in class. In some of these schools, kids don't want to be in class. And so it's very difficult, and it has to be a part of it, but not the main thing. I think you have to be reasonable in how you apply it.
There has to be teacher accountability. However, at this point, we find it very difficult to measure the accountability by using the TCAP that is not aligned to the Common Core standards. And so that puts us in a dilemma. But teacher accountability is extremely important.
I think it's always going to be a challenging issue for us. It's really tough to evaluate teachers as compared to a classroom that could be moving from year to year, could be disrupted for many reasons too. And it's also tough to evaluate a teacher when you base it on how your other peers are doing as well. So we need to constantly be trying to find that fine balance of what is a fair assessment for teachers.
Thank you. Is the state BEP formula fair to Nashville? Explain why.
Well,
Please explain.
We have found that we have a person in our administration that's on the committee, and it has been discovered that there is some impropriety in terms of the formula that has been used. We are working toward trying to improve that.
I believe there's some talk at the state level of improving it for large urban districts. There's probably a good chance that we are not probably getting the fair share of funds that our district deserves.
The formula, I think, can be tweaked a little bit better. I think initially when it came out with, it pretty much did what it was supposed to do. But I think that it can be changed some, and be made a little bit more effective.
Thank you. Where do you stand on standardized testing? Are you aware of how many standardized tests children take each year?
Yeah, so the answer is too many, and I guess it depends on what grade you're in. But yeah, we overtest. But really, what we need to do, especially in a large district like this, is we really need to have the right number of assessments at the right times of the year. So we definitely need to have assessments in the fall to see how the children are doing as they come back into the district. They could be new to the district. They could be new to a school. And we also need to assess them adequately in the spring. And that all really comes down to the state really aligning the tests with the core curriculum.
I think that the use of standardized tests perhaps is overly emphasized, although we must have some form of assessment that allows us to know where our students are at the end of the school year. In the meantime, we can use other assessments such as portfolios, technology portfolios, and project-based learning projects.
Standardized tests have been around for a long time, and they pretty much have increased because people are trying to attempt to show that certain programs work or do not work. They start out what's called a pre-test. They go through and they test some material, then they do a post-test to see if they learn the material. Using that information, they go back and kind of tweak it. At the present time, I think there's a little bit too many. I think simply a pre-test, which basically sometimes called prior knowledge, what does the student know when they go into that class, and then the final test should be enough.
As a school board member, what will you do to dispel the perception that school board is non-respondent to concerns and complaints?
We recently voted to improve our ability to work with parents groups and parent concerns. As a principal, I always try to handle those issues right away, and we are looking toward an improved manner in which we will handle parent concerns.
I think the parents are our constituents, whether they have the right to vote or not. So we really need to kind of really keep track of those. So through our call centers, through ourselves, even be able to kind of open up a ticketing system to really kind of categorize what the issues might be, and also follow them through to being kind of resolved. So so maybe some piece of technology too, and then also just too that everybody, if you're an elected official or whatever, you need to be respondent to the request of your constituents. So we have to pick up the phone, and as Dr. Brandon said, we really need to solve these problems for these parents.
That's simple. When my wife and I appeared before the board, we were treated like we really weren't welcome. I was really surprised that I didn't receive any type of a letter thanking me for coming. And as I looked at all those people that came up, that if they got no response, basically they're not going to come back. I would, as a member of the school board, every person that came before that board, whatever their issue was, I would send them a personal letter thanking them for coming, taking the time to come, and we would be looking into their situation. I would encourage every member of the board to also sign that letter. I think if you engage the public, they'll come to you, they'll get more involved in the issues, and they will understand the issues more. And you can have a better working relationship if you just show that common courtesy.
Define diversity, and what will you do as a school board member to increase diversity in our district?
Diversity, I'll use an example. So my oldest daughter's here tonight, graduated from MLK, and diverse is a word. It's a truly diverse school where politics. Doesn't make any difference if you have $1,000 in your pocket or 2 nickels rubbed together. They're on the floor with a thirst to learn. There's no fights. There's no anything. It's just they're there to learn, and that's what it's all about. And I think that's really what diversity means in our district. We really need. It's not that we lack diversity in our district because people don't want to go to public schools. It's because we've let them down academically year in, year out. Diversity should be everybody. If there's quality education in our schools, it alleviates almost all of our problems. That's how I define diversity.
I would say that diversity is many student groups merged together in learning experiences. It can also be many cultures together within the schools. We have disadvantaged students with our gifted students, with special needs students. That's also diversity. Diversity comes in many ways. But when we mention the different cultures and countries that are represented within our district, we have a golden opportunity to allow our students to mingle with other students and learn from other students.
Diversity is a goal where you are trying to make all the schools equal, and they came out of inequality in schools. If you look at Overton and look at their breakdown, the recent things they have, they're now including the special education students. So diversity goes a wide range, not basically race, but culture, but also it's now going to special ed. And it's a goal, and it's difficult based upon where the schools are and based upon where the zoning is as to getting hopefully the purpose is to get an equal amount.
Thank you.
I would also like to say that Overton is the most diverse high school in our state.
Thank you. We have run out of time for more questions, so this is the time for closing remarks. You also have 1 minute, and we can start with Mr. Driscoll.
Sure. So I hope tonight I've demonstrated that I'm passionate about our schools, and I'm reluctant to use excuses for lack of academic achievement. And I don't believe families who attend the schools want to be kind of labeled as such either. I want to leave you with 6 miles. 6 miles and 6 traffic lights, that's the difference between Overton High School and Brentwood High School. Last year, Brentwood High School had 14 National Merit Scholar semifinalists. Overton had 1. We share the same grocery stores, the same gas stations, the same exits on the highway. That just shouldn't happen, and there should be no excuse for it. Our growth in our ACT scores have not been that great over the last couple of years. They're fairly stagnant, in my opinion. I believe we probably left $20, $30 million in Hope scholarships on the table over the last 8 years. That's a lot of money, and that's a lot of money that where parents, if their kid got a 21 on the ACT, that they'd be able to be in college right now or not straddled with that debt.
I think that my combined experience as a board member, as an educator, as a parent, have had great value and added great value to the board. As I said before, when contributing to discussions, I listen with great concern. I operate with a dual knowledge of governing and educating. This differentiates me from the other candidates and allows me to make fair and careful decisions that are in the best interest of the children of Nashville. The work of the board is very important to the entire city, and it impacts all stakeholders. It's our obligation to get it right. To a great degree, we hold the key to the city within our hands. It's a plus for all when students succeed, and we must support our neighborhood schools.
When the government cannot provide for the needs of the people will find a way to provide those needs themselves. One of those needs is power. The power they seek is not the power to control others, but the power to control their own future. I wrote those words in 2005, And they provide an insight into what is happening in Metro Nashville Public Schools today, as parents and caregivers are disillusioned with public schools and are seeking educational alternatives. Many people are too young to remember the bitter battles over homeschooling. Today, homeschooling is an accepted and respected form for parents and caregivers to educate their children. Metro Nashville Public Schools is currently in debate over Common Core, the charter schools, the academies, and vouchers. These debates are also bitter as both sides seek to provide their insights. As a parent of 3 children in public school, I support every parent and caregiver who seeks to provide a better education for their child or children. As a candidate,
Thank you. Thanks to each of you for taking time to come and share your positions and for allowing us to get to know you a little bit better before we get to the polls on August 7th. I would like to give another thanks to our hosts for making these forums possible, the Urban League of Middle Tennessee, Metropolitan Nashville Education Association, and the Nashville Area Chamber of Commerce. We also say a big thank you to McMurray Middle School for hosting us tonight and to each of you for joining us. This concludes our program.